persist to exist within the system of our status quo in every country that we live. Far worse, we are arbitrarily forced into a Noxus system, a system where individuals are valued based on their quote-unquote intellect or expertise. This looks like billionaires justifying pay gap of Brawn based on works like being a team leader, factory worker, and being a financial manager in their agencies. You can see their pay gap despite of the skill floor that they require in order for them to be put in that specific work. This is a systematic nuance and not just a call out why this is unfair, because value is not just subjective, but it should also reflect our necessity in our shared economy that we live. No, CEO is the only team arguing in a different definition here, which is again too late for this debate as per WDC manual. But even so, they also misses out all of the systematic issues that we have pandered for within this debate. What did you hear from Joseph so far? We already beat out opposition in terms of three main areas. First, on mitigation of birth lottery. Second, on equal valuation of dignity of every workers that we have. And third, on democratic and less disruptive access in the capitalist society that exists in both sides of the benches. Let's talk about the first clash. What is the substance that you get from CG, which fixes the mystical premises from OG with no nuance before their impacts? But sure, I'll take the POI.
Opening government is probably right about equal salaries, meaning you have to pay the construction worker the same as the doctor that saves the life. Closing government without knifing their opening have to explain why the value of saving a life should be treated equal as that of laying bricks. But besides artistic expression, closing the position just repeats our case.
It's already out. Okay. Right now, we unfairly value brains over brawn, as Joseph pointed out. This mindset shapes our system, as seen in how our society mocks stupid or ostracizes nerds. We have polarizing side. But by the way, I'll take it to the POI later on since it's prepared in my speech. But I think it's not just a soft clash in this debate. The deeper problem is that capitalism has weaponized this divide through processes like gerrymandering and structural inequality, leaving the poor systematically disenfranchised to gatekeeping of resources in order for you to be more educated at the end of the day. Before we have long valued expertise over labor in human dignity and in workforce, there are two things that happen. First, the poor, deprived of quality education, are trapped in a cycle of exploitative labor that serves the interests of the wealthy, as stated by Joseph. What we get from this is that they have no control over all of the institutions that dictates what counts as rational good policy for their working and social conditions. That means Joseph proved that generations of disenfranchisement have left them excluded from meaningfully political participation. In essence, they are systematically locked into ignorance by a structure of capitalism designed to keep them uneducated, obedient, and powerless. And therefore, the system that you have coming from side government, someone coming from side opposition, simply punishes them. Two, those whose talents lie in physical strength rather than academics, who are excluded from social respect because our system rewards theoretical intelligence instead of practical excellence. This already proves why OO's world is simply dismissive of their own harms. Equity for a lot of people cannot happen in your end when the system doesn't allow subjective valuation. That is, right now, it is forced. And I find COs out of contention simply insulting. The bronze are valued in your world, but it requires extreme threshold to do so because not everyone will be born as Manny Pacquiao or Manny Pacman. In our world, what we want is an equal systematic footing because before intellect become the measure of human worth, people live in a cooperative sharing communities where identity was identified not by productivity of intelligence, but by contribution and belonging. That is the world that we support, a society that values every form of strength equally and restores the dignity stripped away by quote-unquote elitism of intelligence. Note, this is what we prove, that in no matter area in which we live, regardless of the arbitrary open exchanges, we talked about why we have a system that literally locks people out in birth lottery. It doesn't matter whether brains are much more productive right now in the status quo in comparison to bronze. The problem is that in our system within the status quo, this system is forced upon us, and the kicker is it's designed to easily harm people in the lower ground. It only takes a capitalist system to control people who are locked up to study. Like, you can train your own body as a worker starting from a young age, but you cannot survive lack of proper education due to gerrymandering. So even if you believe O's case, the world in which they function is simply systematically oppressive. Opening is also just simply out of world comparison. Take a look at how adversarial they are. Both bronze and brains are arbitrary. But the difference is, we clean the slate in which society view them. This looks like praising a very, very skilled worker to be somehow like Albert Einstein because they possess great expertise in their own field. Already, both teams are out of the metric of birth lottery. don't badger. Next, in terms of democratization of our human dignity. In the status quo, as Joseph pointed out, society operates on a single scale, one that measures expertise purely through intellect. This means in the bronze are never recognized as equals to those who succeed in academic or theoretical fields. Our systems simply don't allow a parallel scale that rewards excellence in brawn. There's no structure that honors skill, precision, and intelligence embedded in physical work, the same way we celebrate intellectual achievement. So, even if you possess a great amount of necessity in our society, just because you are in that field, in that scale, you are literally locked up within the system. In the world we envision, expertise still exists, even within Brawn. The crucial difference, which the opposition overlooks, that we're not arguing that janitors should be valued as the same way as architects, but that foremen should be valued the same as engineers. In other words, technical mastery and physical expertise deserve equal dignity and recognition in our society, and you can only get these mechanisms and impacts in CG insofar as OG is really, really big, because also in fairgrounds inside opposition, both of them doesn't have a fair grounding. It doesn't exist due to gerrymandering that they never concede. So even if you weigh the main premise coming from Joseph, the world we build is something that is based on fair grounds. That is a world that looks like what we had in history before hypercapitalism. Joseph gave you systematic reasons why reforms cannot happen on their side, but note that this argument stands on principle and also in pragmatic. Because even in our worst case, in our world, disparity between brawn and intellect can still exist in other fields based on scope. But it finally makes sense. Op is right that capitalism exists regardless. But unlike in the status quo, where being smart automatically makes you more valuable, our world builds disparity on fairness and contribution. That means differences in reward comes from specialization and not from superiority. Like how an engineer might still earn more than a janitor, but they will be valued as the same as foreman because they have the same skill floor at the end of the day. Hence, it is only in our world where we minimize the gap between the wealthy and the poor because we push them in the middle based on their utilities outside of their birth lottery. Thank you for another championship.